happy. I thought I'd do a streamer shootout of 8 streamers comparing relative budget ones to each other and how they rate to a few premium streamers that I've got here. Some have DACs, some are just transport, so obviously send the stream onto your DAC. I'm benchmarking these on how they sound first, going up in sound quality as we go along, then feature sets next. So this doesn't mean that a lower down the list product is not good for your needs or isn't a good product itself. I've said before that I'm not really fanatical about pricey streaming transports and this kind of, junk in, junk out mantra. I just don't think it applies to most streamers of the ilk in this film where we aren't spending, $5,000 plus. Most digital transports at limited cost can sound very good, and even with the type of kit I use, which is in the description by the way. Streamers tend to have big diminishing returns used just as transports or bridges when you spend loads. Where you do get value, I think, and benefits is when you start buying streamers with DACs of different sound quality or streamers with different features and apps, Roon, CD rippers, server streamers and so on. From a firm with a lineage of different products, the WXC-50 is technically a streaming preamp with a DAC, but it fits the budget domain. Yamaha refer to it as an audiophile product, but I'm not so sure. The DACs are not optimal for audiophile use of systems above maybe a few thousand, nor is the digital output. But if you are powering a small power amp with smallish, relatively inexpensive speakers, or active speakers, for a desk maybe, where sound quality isn't hugely important, but features and size are, this Yamaha will definitely Pepsi challenge others. It packs a punch for features at price and because many are discounted at the moment. You use Yamaha's MusicCast app to control it. This app is okay, but it isn't up to standards of BlueOS or Sonos, I don't think. At the back, you flick a switch to turn it from a preamp with front volume control to just using it as a digital transport. The sound of the Port, which is the replacement for the Sonos Connect, is more full-bodied to the thin and probably jittery sound of the Connect. I don't know what HiFi slated this port, because it sounds good to me just as a transport. I think it suits people with Sonos systems because the app is great, the box is small, and it's not primarily about sound quality, but all out features, use and price, and just use at home. Connections wise, you can add CD players or turntables into its analog inputs and then send music over the network via its mesh network to other Sonos speakers or maybe other ports. With the S2 software and app Sonos brought out last year, you can stream high res now over your local network, and with Quobuzz, Sonos now support online high res streaming. As an output to a DAC, it doesn't quite sound as good as the Bluesound Node 2i because it's just a little bit, coloured, I think, compared to the Bluesound. And maybe Sonos have taken to smoothing out the sound of the port too much against how the Connect used to perform. But I'd preface all this with saying this is by far a bad sounding product. I think that the Sonos app is very good indeed, and you get really good time syncing between devices. You can plumb in all streaming services on planet Earth and planet Zog, pretty much, wherever planet Zog is. Okay, so the design team of this company are based in France. And is it Allo or Allo? For my British viewers, you might be thinking of that cheesy BBC wartime sitcom with Gordon Kay. And no, I'm not risking putting up a video of it to make too much light of British-Franco relations. I'm just going to say it's called an Allo, which is actually how I think most people say it. The front card slot of this Allo carries the app software in regard to how you interface with it, which is installed for you, or you can install it yourself. In this case, I'm using the Moody or Mood, depends again how you say it, app, but you can also have Volumio or Volumio, depends on how you say it again. And also you can use Max2Play or Diet PI apps. Isn't it funny how audiophiles think that they have to be so precise with these terms? It makes me laugh. Anyway, however you say it, this is a clean sounding transport. And by the way, I used Allo's Shanty linear PSU to connect its power supply. What I think the USBridge Signature has as its selling point is extreme value, and there's nothing nasty in the sound at all. On the downside, the manuals are a little tricky to understand if you've never done streaming before and you're not techie. And I think that Allo could do that a little bit better. It took me an hour or two to set it up because with Moody you have to toggle on lots of settings and work out which ones apply by trial and error. But actually the product is simple in use once you get it going. Also you can use it in Roon over Moody AirPlay. Whereas I think the USBridge Signature uses a Raspberry Pi module, the DigiOne Signature uses a Raspberry Pi's mini computer board with what's called a hat board on the top. This is the bit Allo designed themselves with coaxial RCA and BNC digital outputs on it and the OS app on the card. But you have to use two power supplies, one for the PI board and one for the hat board, and for this purpose I used the Shanty's dual outputs. You can use all the operating systems as with the USBridge Signature, and my one comes with Volumio installed, which you can access via a browser interface on your PC or laptop, or via an app once the browser is going. Slightly annoying. Sound-wise, the DigiOne Signature is a little bit more refined to the USBridge Signature in warmer tone and soundstage, and that was consistent across a range of DACs that I have. Unfortunately, it's the same with the manuals, and the operating systems aren't the best with the basic app interfaces. But I think where these Allos work best is as Roon endpoints, because Roon does the heavy lifting, in the user experience, if you like, for what the card-based operating systems lack. Also, if you're using this Allo streamer with Roon, then sound quality per monetary value unit makes it probably the best value Roon bridge of all products in this video. Node 2i is a UPnP streamer, internet music service streamer. It's room ready with dual way Bluetooth and a headphone output, and you can use it as a transport or use its DAC with its RCA analog outputs. Its DACs are not as good as the next one in this film. Admittedly, the Node is a lower price, but if you want to transport into a DAC, it's as good as it gets as far as streaming lossless Tidal or Quobuzz into pretty much most hi-fi systems, including really good audiophile ones. Also, it's perhaps better than the next one in this film because used with some DACs, it doesn't have any edge and a surprisingly refined sound. To me, it sounds as good as an Innuos server streaming online music content, not from its hard drive though, and as good as something like an Auralic Aries G1 with much better BlueOS app integration. I think what's going to be interesting is how this gets on against the new Node 2i version 3 with an improved DAC, shipping in a month's time I think. And I'm hoping to do an A to B against my 2i and relate it to some competition as well. I would say though that the Node 2i is the improver on the two Allo products if you're going to be using the BlueOS app because of, you know, all-round sound experience, user experience, and it's a real kind of plug and play product, you know, 5-minute job from out the box to starting to listen to your music. As a transport, it has a bigger soundstage and is slightly thicker set than the Allo USB Signature and pretty much similar to the DigiOne Signature. But summarising, it busts both of those on app and user ease of use if this is a priority. Terrific product. The CXN version 2 is a UPnP internet service streamer that has Tidal Connect, Spotify Connect, AirPlay 2, Chromecasting and is also room ready, but it uses dual mono DACs with XLR balanced outputs. You can also use it as a digital preamp. I think that its digital outputs can be a little edgy into some DACs, although its DACs itself are superb. It doesn't seem to work as well with the Qtist as my RME and the internal Hegel DAC of my H390. But where the CXN version 2 wins is on value for money credentials as an all-in-one streaming DAC at its price. So because the DAC in it is so good, you must route digital sources into it. So what I'm saying is that this is going to be more than good enough for most $2,000 to $5,000 systems and some. Okay, its StreamMagic app is a little basic, but the front interface is terrific in allowing you to mingle with your music well, so too the remote in advancing tracks in streaming services, which seems forgotten nowadays with so much tablet and phone use to control your devices. Also, I think switching out of standby to different apps and services is really useful because there's no faffing waiting for things to turn on. Okay, this is my Mark II version and Innuos have a Mark III out, but I'd be dubious if there's much of a change on account of small changes in HiFi, although I'd stand corrected of course. But I put this in more for reasons of comparison, and because it's a Roon server, CD ripper, obviating a CD player with a browser or phone tablet based interface for doing that, it's really good value, and it has a USB output to your DAC as well. I think you'd probably struggle opportunity cost wise to get as much for your money, although prices of the Mark III Innuos servers have gone up a lot. Remember, no CD player is needed anymore. Where I think this Innuos wins is playing music from its hard drive through all the quiet features it has. So triple linear power supplies, Ethernet shielding, the board's optimised for low noise solid state hard drives and so on. Sound quality is more involving from its hard drive than is playing streaming services by some margin, to the extent something like a Node 2i sounds as good for online streaming, if maybe tonally different, which isn't a reason to say something is better, by the way. Streaming other content from UPnP drives or streaming services, it's pretty much the same in sonic performance to the Node 2i. I think it's easy to see how you could be dubious of this product sounding good in a kind of add-on, plain looking, small component box kind of way. Plus, buying in the UK with linear PSUs, it comes out at around £2,000. I'm going to read out what Steve M said in response to one of my Facebook posts about it. He said, "I'm tired of all these threads about the new Bingo Bongo 9 coupled with a Space Sonic Blurt Squerbler and a nut bloff power supply." So what do we say to that? Well, in some respects I kind of get where he's coming from because of impressions of this box, but then I don't, because you avoid hi-fi that doesn't look much at your peril, and sometimes when it looks good it can be poor sounding, and when it looks plain it can be excellent. Connecting it up, from your router you connect up the Sonore optical module by Ethernet cable, and then on the other side of the optical module you have a fibre optic out connection to the optical rendu, obviously converting Ethernet to an optical signal. This goes into the other side of the optical rendu and you use a proprietary fibre optic cable between the two. Obviously both units need to have their own power supplies. A USB connection is then made to your DAC to complete the chain. In this case I'm using an Audiophonics linear PSU and Small Green Computer linear power supply. Once you've connected it up, you head over to their website and select Find My Unit. Then you can set whether you want to use it as a Roon endpoint, UPnP renderer, Spotify Connect player, amongst other types of endpoints. I think the reason why this thing sounds so damn good is because it's totally galvanically isolated. In other words, no stray RFI, radio frequency interference, and EMI, electromagnetic interference, can get into the data stream. And no, you can't say, well, an optical cable does this, because in lay terms, its digital signal is already affected. Isolating Ethernet from the player clearly adds sonic benefits, otherwise I wouldn't be saying so, because in my reviews, products have to pass the sound test too, where I rate obvious changes, honestly, and not just preferenced or biased small changes. So how does this actually sound different? Well, to the Innuos in this test, there seems to be decently better depth perception in the music. It's also deeper and more realistic in bass and slightly more dynamic in bass too. The Innuos does sound wider in its sound though, and whilst I don't think it has the utility and value of my Innuos in my HiFi, because the Innuos is a Roon server, it rips too, it's not hard to imagine this Sonore will be the improver if you're using a better DAC than the £1,000-ish ones like I'm using in this review, the Cutest and the RME, because this Sonore will probably reveal more. To be honest, I'd like to see Sonore put these units in better designed cases, because I think they would dispel the types of notions and attitudes Steve M has. And I think his attitude is symptomatic of thinking if it looks plain, it doesn't sound good. And this is sometimes not the case. Sorry, no pun intended. So in summary then, the Sonore is the best sounding of all here, just, followed by the Innuos from its hard drive. Streaming wise, the Allus offer best budget performance, particularly with Roon, and the Node 2i stands out as the best transport and ease of use with its app. Only the Yamaha, Sonos, Bluesound and Cambridge Audio have DACs, and they definitely are best sounding in that pecking order. Anyway, I hope you got something out of this video, my honesty. I've tried to be fair to manufacturers and consumers at the same time. And also, remember that if you want more advice or asking questions, please sign up to Patreon or make donations via PayPal. And as always, thanks very much for watching.